this meeting to order. I'd like to start out with the pledge of allegiance, and someone kind of do a prayer. I would appreciate that. Sorry.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll say a prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this beautiful day and the freedom to gather here together. And we ask you to look over all our troops that are protecting us, no matter where they're serving, and we ask you to give us guidance to do the right for the people. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We'll start off with, we do have a quorum. Everybody's present, no absentees. I am in mind, but not in the body and soul. Before we get started, under old business, I would like to, I guess it would be under old business. On the last meeting that we had, we talked about moving forward to the 5 board members, a 5-person board. And I put together some notes for Jeff Loxton, which, to my understanding, is the attorney to the fire board. Weeks went by and I still hadn't had a response from Mr. Loxton about our priority of setting up a 5-board system, 5-person board. And I had an attorney from town here in Colt somehow finally made contact with Mr. Loxton. And he basically said, well, I'll go ahead and read this verbatim from an email. Aaron, I did not respond to Maurice for a couple of reasons. First, the topic that he was discussing was not necessarily a fire board topic, but that which involved him as an elected official for Arcadia as it relates to our previous meeting. I thought that it was best to address that to amend or modify the interlocal agreement through you. Secondly, I received a correspondence from you with a day or two after Maurice's email that alluded to the fact that your clients were moving forward in a manner consistent with our group meeting. Which, incidentally, we don't know exactly what was still said at a period of time. It took a while to get some notes back from the 3 attorneys, so we weren't sure what their conception was alluding to, because I'm not sure what they were alluding to, the minutes, what actually happened during the meeting.
Did we ever get minutes from them?
Not physically. I think a few people here got some.
I never got any.
I never got any either.
I contacted Jeanette Casabon, and I haven't received an email back from her on that second either.
I've got a copy of them, and the only reason I got one is because I had a heated discussion with Aaron Colt about that meeting, so I do have them, and he did send them out. He says he sent them to everyone. I don't know.
I never got a copy of it.
Were they 2 pages, Johnny? 2 pages, well,
Yeah.
2 in the signatures on the third.
Yeah, it's got all 3 attorney signatures on it.
Well, I'm very concerned what's happening here, because the last paragraph says, finally, I thought that all 3 participating units were going to voice their informal approval prior to taking any action, as the amendments are only valid after the participating units have adopted substantially identical resolutions or ordinances. I think that's what I was trying to do. I have not had heard from Jackson Township, so I had not made any proposed revisions. Jeanette, could you let me know where Jackson stands on this approach? My concern is threefold. Number one.
There's your resent to what we voted on and discussed.
Yeah, let me go ahead and read this, just because it's consistent with what we had that night in the meeting. We all agreed to that the priority would be getting the 5 board going, and then we would work on resolving all the other issues as it comes to the MOU. Here's what the response was from the attorney to another attorney.
That's you to Loxton.
Well, here's me. Here's what I actually wrote to I said, Jeff, the towns of Atlanta and Arcadia have both agreed to increase the 3-person board to the 5 currently we have elected officials which represent Atlanta and Arcadia, along with a Jackson Township executive and/or alternate, which is you. The approved 5-person board will include 2 elected officials representing their entities, that's Arcadia and Atlanta, additionally representing living in Jackson, and another person living in Jackson Township. Additionally, the Township Board will have an additional representative also living in the Jackson Township. Please prepare the required legal documents for both the Town of Arcadia and Atlanta to sign, agree, and approve in order to move forward with this agreement. We would like to have this in place June 1st, 2015. If you have any questions, blah, 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 blah.
And it's signed on the back, and it's behind signed as a fire board president.
And and I signed it, we all agreed to it, it's official in our minutes, but I was ignored. Now, my question, I'm a little concerned because I'm getting to the point, I'm a little upset that, I've had a lot gets me upset here lately. Upset at the fact that when we hired Jeff Watson, it was for the benefit of the territory, he was going to be the territory attorney. Bottom line is that all the language that's being said back and forth from Aaron Cole to Jeff Watson and to the interpret the emails is that he will not answer to me until the township agrees that he can talk to me about it. He said he's not going to respond to me directly. And to me, that's unprofessional for one thing. It's either that or we have a breach of contract. So I like to throw that back, and that's another thing. I'm going to throw that back to the township board, the other end, and say, tell me what's going on. Am I being pinholed because I want to move forward, or is it because we're waiting for a township board approval on something that shouldn't have been gone through the township board in the first place?
Well, first of all, I haven't been in contact with Jeff Logston at all.
I haven't either.
I did get an email from Jeanette Kassenbaum that was sent to Jeff Logston, and I was carbon copied on it, on a couple concerns she had about the interlocal, some wording that she wanted clarification for and possible changes on, and I haven't received anything back from that either. So I don't know if she's out of the office right now, but I haven't received anything back.
Well, I think what's clear of all this turmoil that's going on, we said that the real issue is the lack of communication. You made the comment. I heard Mr. Cook, Jerry Cook make a comment to that. Chris made comments to it. Everyone agreed that it was a lack of communication. Well, in reverse, that's what it appears at this point. The people that need to know the information aren't getting it for some odd reason. And I thought the instructions were clear. That was our decision that we had made, and all 3 entities at the table agreed to do that and move forward. That would have been the priority. And then once we have all the 5 members on board, the additional elected or appointed out, whatever appointed person from the township and one of the 2 entities, would sit down with all the MOUs and look at them and not rush through the whole thing, because we know what happens, we rush through things. We miss things and we have to go back over and get it done. And instead, without talking to the fire territory board, we have an attorney who decided to change everything all at one time. Well, they did without consultation.
I don't know how to answer that. I don't really know. I haven't talked to him. Last thing I got from him was the rough draft. I think everybody here got that rough draft, as did Jeanette, and that's what she was referring to. I was just waiting on guidance from them on if there's any document changes on that we needed to look into. I'm kind of in the same boat you are. I don't know.
Well, I think one of the things that Chris had mentioned is that I think she doesn't know what's going on because I don't talk to her. I don't mention anything to her. Well, I don't know if I have to do that when we have a direct representative. And, the minutes are read and pretty clear consistent unless we're paying bills and then we have a question on whether it should be paid out of what line item it should be paid out of.
Yeah.
I think it was pretty clear without any interpretation what our endeavor was to have that board in place by 1 June, and at this rate, it's not going to happen.
Well, and I'd like to comment on that too, because this has been discussed since September when we signed the budget. Our territory board signed the budget. we discussed this, you were sitting there at the meeting, we all agreed that we needed to have the entities that we represent review the interlocal, make changes, questions, and all of us get together and have a meeting all together and change us all at one time. Well, that didn't take place, hasn't taken place, and then we, all this chaos started over the budget issue and everything, and it ended up where we're at now. And then this meeting was held amongst the board presidents, which you guys were present, and there's things in there that I don't understand with Walton being president. They're having, it says here in the minutes, this is a copy of the minutes, like I said, I had to beg Aaron Hall to get these from him because I promised that this meeting was going to be recorded and minutes would be in detail of everything that was talked about and said, and those are so generic they ain't worth the paper written on, and there is no recording of the meeting. So nothing took place that I was promised. This meeting was supposedly about everything that I caused, and there was issues within that interlocal that was supposed to be addressed, that there was 30-some issues that you said you didn't even know about and wasn't aware of.
I haven't seen one of them.
And they weren't discussed, so basically this meeting that was held was worthless because the whole issue that was causing the problems is the interlocal was not being followed. And we have agreed to follow this, and, we have agreed to follow this, and with Walton right here in these minutes, it says that you guys, the president, the party's president of this meeting here, which would be you guys, the board presidents, were to make goals and objectives, including drafting amendments to the interlocal. Well, he knows you can't even do that. You can, but why should 3 out of the entity do it when there's 9 people involved? There's 3 from Atlanta, 3 from Arcadia, 3 from Township. All these amendments and modifications and suggestions for changes to that interlocal has got to be approved by each entity. It's a majority vote per entity, not by one person. And the entities, basically this meeting was held because no one would meet with everybody present, so this was set up with Harry Grant conducting the meeting and the board presidents. So this meeting was excluding all interested parties that needed to have a voice in this. So actually, Lawson should have spoke up, and instead of saying this here, according to this, you guys, the 3 of you that participated in this meeting, were supposed to have all your concerns and stuff back by April the 3rd, and you were to send them to Castabon, Logston, and Aaron Call for review, and then he would make amendments. So he's already made amendments on that draft. It cost us $600 and some, and they're no good. Why? That's what we agreed to do, all the changes at one time, so there wasn't a bunch of money spent. Here our budget's tight, and Lawson's made these, and we've got the invoice that shows where he charged $600 and some, and there was no need for changes on that interlocal unless all entities have reviewed it and are in agreement. So now we're out $640 for the changes, and the way I look at it is we sit here as a territory board, which is what this whole thing's about. It's for the territory board to make decisions, to vote. We voted to do what we've been talking since September. Review the interlocal after we do the 5-member board. We made a motion to have Maurice contact the fire territory attorney. Maurice signs it as a fire territory attorney board president, requesting the information and tells him what we want, spells it out exactly what needs to be in the ordinance and resolution, so we can move forward with the 5-member board that I thought this board was in agreement, and from this meeting, that's what was discussed, and everybody was pretty much on board for a 5-board meeting, never expanded to a 5-member board. So we needed these ordinances and resolution to take back to our entities for a vote, so we could get a unanimous vote, same as we did the alternate. Now, he's not gonna do anything because of whatever reason, and I don't understand that.
Well, what we're doing here, we're basically summarizing what our intent was and what everything else was, but obviously we can't move forward with this until the township board decides or approves, which I didn't get to that, the ability to have our attorney draw up the necessary documents so we can pursue this 5-board member.
And that's my point right there. He's our attorney, he is a fire board attorney, and this has been brought up, and I was point blank told in an email, and it's been on record, Casabon is the township attorney, Walton is representing us. So there's no need for him to talk to them if if this is what the territory board voted and agreed on, we are doing, the fire territory board is asking our attorney that we're paying to put a document together for us to present to our respective entities. So what is this, I mean, Jeff's a representative for the township, and he was here, but it's in the minutes, we voted to go ahead and get this document prepared.
Well,
I don't know what Austin's holdup is
I
on it.
was told he was instructed not to
He was instructed not to.
go directly to me. But I wanted to touch it.
I haven't heard that.
That's why I don't understand that. So,
So what are our suggestions that we'd like to get accomplished here?
on your next township board meeting or executive session, you'd like to get the approval
Okay.
from the township board to move forward and get these resolved. So we have proper documentation, so we can have a 5 board member. Then after that priority is done, we could take a breather and move forward and work on these MOU issues.
We need something to sign, don't we?
Yeah, that's what was supposed to prepare was it takes an ordinance and a resolution. The town's the same as the alternates, that he prepared the resolution for the township. Being a township, they file a resolution, and the towns file ordinances.
Using the same language.
And they're identical, and all three of them, he prepares the document, we take it to the boards, and at one of our public meetings, it's read, and it's either approved or denied by each entity, and if they're all three entities are in agreement, then that's it. I mean, we can appoint the 2 additional members to the fire territory board and move forward.
Let me note for the record here, and I want to make sure to put this on record, is the fact that once we get this accomplished, we'll get the 5 board member out of the way, my intention is to get another attorney. This year, it'll be this year. At this point, may have an attorney in mind that I know real well, you probably do too as well, that may undertake, or then we know for sure that we've hired the attorney, and he is our direct link to getting things done. Right now, we don't have a direct link, obviously. Because if I'm paying an attorney to do something, I'm his client. I'm paying you to do what I want you to provide. It's not illegal. You have an ethical responsibility to fulfill that obligation. And that's not happening. So either he's too busy or his mom's clouded. And we can't continue to survive that way. We want immediate responses when we need legal advice.
Okay, we have a board meeting next week, and I'll try to get this stuff put together before that board
Okay.
meeting. And
That
will be
was the
on
biggest
that
thing.
will be on the agenda of the next township board meeting.
I appreciate it. I know I jumped ahead on that, but I think it's important to highlight as one of the important issues this evening is the fact where it's stalemate, you can't get close, it's like a chess game. Anyway, going back, I have before me the last fire territory meeting, we should have done first, meeting of the 21st of April. So everyone had an opportunity to read the 7-page document.
I brought 2 copies of that for us to sign if we agree to it, and I will keep one for myself for a backup. The other one will go to the township to be scanned, or to be scanned and put on the website. And then also, this seemed to work out pretty good the last meeting. I was able to give this recording and all the information to Audra. She was able to do that. She liked how that worked out.
Thank you.
Flow.
I do want to say, but let's go ahead and get a motion. We have a motion to approve.
I have read the minutes, and I don't have any corrections or objections to.
Okay.
I'm fine.
If not, it's approved as written, as read. The issue on paying Audra, this time, because I saw emails about how we pay Audra, I responded to Chris, and I told her to go ahead and pay out of the line item that was designated for $8,000. However, if I had spoken to the chief, we had some leftover part-time money we could have used to pay Audra the 3.75 hours that she had worked on this document.
Okay, so we did the vote on the minutes. Okay. Do we need, not just to interject, but when we do the agenda from now on, we need to approve the agenda first and then do the minutes. It's down in the middle of the minutes. I kind of moved it up on mine here, so we really need to approve the agenda And if anybody wants to add anything, we need to do that and have that on record.
You're absolutely correct. Well, let's get that done then. Let's go ahead and, after the fact, before the fact, we have approval on the agenda for today and other items to be added.
I have one item I'd like to add to the agenda under new business. The new chief's vehicle, just an update on when we're gonna put it in service, that sort of thing. I'm sure chief's probably gonna cover that in his
Okay.
anyway.
Do we have anything else?
Once we get into something that comes up in discussion,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, as read, approved. Okay, let's move forward, continue on with the old business. Station 56 construction. We had discussed, and we all agreed that we need to do something with that, and we had the money availability, and we decided where the money could be at. I'm finding out there's not enough money in there to pay for that, pay for the rest of the insurance money available to pay for the construction of the fire department.
Well, I think there was some confusion at the end of last year, and I talked to Chris about this, because I was totally confused about this. I'm coming on board midstream. I asked her what happened to that money, and she said it wasn't put in a special account, it was rolled into the territory funds, or the cash fund, from leftover money transferred into that. So the money's there, it's just, it's not in a special account that says leftover insurance money. Does that make, so it's in our budget.
So we have $2,000 in cash laid somewhere?
Well, let me pull this out. This is hot off the presses.
Good.
First of all, let me tell you, and I know that I'm gonna skip down some, but I gotta explain this to you before we go any further. We were notified yesterday that we will get a May draw from the state on Friday, which happens to be a good day to do it because Friday's payroll also. How much we're getting, we have no idea, but we were told money will be deposited in our account on Friday.
She should have an email with that dollar amount on there. We all get
That
it.
was something we were,
With that
She
dollar.
said she had it as of 1 o'clock this afternoon when I talked to her. But she may get it soon. She didn't know how much it was, but she said we will get it on Friday.
okay, good.
Currently, we have $3,494.50 in that fund, plus whatever's gonna be added to it. Now, if we go down to the line items, for example, the work on that Station 56, I would suggest, and this is up to the board, but I would suggest we take it out of the line item for buildings and grounds. Wouldn't that normally be where you take maintenance on buildings out of?
Yeah, it should be,
But for improvements, but we were told that we had that money available, and I said we would have.
Well, there was $20,000 on that line item for this year.
but my question is, where did the insurance money go? It was earmarked for the repairs to the fire station, it never did get completed.
No, when it,
And, I mean, there was $5,000, roughly $5,000 left, and towards the end of the year, she asked, and it's in the minutes, where she wanted to give that money to the volunteer township firefighters, because she said they cleaned up over there, and there was money for cleanup in there. And then further discussions and things that went on, we had no problem if everything, all the repairs had been made, and that there wasn't financial money in there for cleanup, and the firemen did it, to go ahead and gave them the money for doing, the work over there, over and beyond what their, their regular duties are. And after some time had elapsed and some discussion, there was only $800 and some allotted for cleanup over there, and then the repairs was not completed to the fire station, because in the repair and damages, that was the settlement, the meeting room, the ceiling was cracked, the drywall was cracked, it was to be repaired and repainted, the carpets were to be cleaned, and additional installation load in the attic, and none of that's taken place. So I don't know why she hung on to that money instead of going ahead and hiring the repairers that was on the end thing, on the settlement. So we still got a damaged building, and funds were to be spent on that. And then she was saying that they were completed at the time we discussed this, and she wanted to give that additional money that was left over because all the repairs were finished, and she wanted to give it to the firemen. And that was where it was set at. That was agreed, that was set at a meeting, and we discussed that, so I don't know why she would have entered it back into the operating fund or the budget at that point. And I don't know how she did it. I'd like to see where she entered it back into the budget, because that ain't what we discussed.
All right, well, I don't have the answer for you on that. That's something that we'll have to look into. But I did want to point out to the board that there is $20,000 that were allotted this year for buildings and grounds. Maintenance, updates, whatever, and you've spent $826.58 thus far.
Let's do this. I think we said that, I know about the insurance money, but.
We do have the money to pay for it,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess so we don't complicate things and get this thing rolling. Let's entertain a motion to take out the $20,000 to fix that up with the question about the insurance money. I'm just looking where it's at and what we can use that for, and that's why we want to use it in the first place. It was a continuous, with the road, a continuous thing. But I don't want to hold up another month and get started on something we can get done by the end of summer.
I agree.
And it's a good thing to do. So if we can have some discussion on that, we can do that.
I have no discussion. I mean, this has been an ongoing project for 6 or 8 months, and this was Chris's request to separate that sleeping quarters. And, I mean, there's always just one issue after another, and I just want to make sure the money's there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
We're gonna approve it, I wanna make sure the funds are there, I'm hearing we're flat broke, and, that money was earmarked, so I thought it was set aside for the particular, projects in the town of Atlanta Station. And, I don't wanna jeopardize our budget and our employees and whatever. I mean, I'm hearing one thing here, and then I'm hearing there's money, now I'm hearing there's money there. I mean, is there or isn't there?
Well, it's been budgeted, and with this next draw, there should be money there. The June draw, there should be money there, because that's the next 6 months of our budget for that. I did have a question, Chief, just before we vote on this, do you know of any major improvements that will need to be done to either one of the stations, other than the Route 155s, I would say, that you know of that would affect that line item? I hate to put you on the spot, but I just got to thinking, if you are thinking of a plan of a project later down the road.
Well, it's a very good question, because I don't know, have you seen his new office in the fire department?
Yeah, it's a tiny house.
It's a tiny house, but it's better than what? Is there any, we can use some of that money to, what we want to do is expand the fire department, that $20,000 will cover that. Well, what can we do with that extra money, so we don't lose it at the end of the year, move forward and maybe do something with the firehouse we need to do? Is there?
The plan was that last year, when we did the renovations in the Arcadia station, we completed half of that. You can tell that by the tile in the beginning.
Okay.
So that major mission, which was to create a wall, for safety reasons and energy efficient reasons, and we achieved that kitchen office wall.
Do you want to continue that?
That $20,000 was intended to use 15 as the year to finish that. Prior to that, we didn't know about the roof, and we intended on that remaining. However, it was managed insurance money that was from the Atlanta damage for that money to stay and be put back into the Atlanta fund. That was the plan when this budget was set, was to sort of answer your question, because underlying after the roof, there is a clear drainage problem at the Arcadia station, to the point where we can see underneath the outside walls with daylight, which tells me that there's an energy efficient issue. There's an insect issue with that into the fire station.
So I think what we're hearing is the fact that it would have been okay if we didn't have the roof project going on, because we still haven't heard a final bid who we're going to use, and we've been talking for a few months here about getting repaired. And is the township willing to absorb some of that cost from that roof?
Yeah, with a brief discussion we've had, we're willing to absorb at least, percentage of the cost of that. I don't know what, we got a board meeting. We're kind of waiting on what the quote is here and what you guys decide to move forward with. We want to get that done. That is on our.
I think that was the main reason why we have extra insurance money because of the roof priorities and the tiling priorities that finish up the other job, it would impact any other line item, why not use the money, you know?
Yeah.
That was our
Did you have, Chief, did you have any idea what kind of money they had projected to finish the interior of the firehouse?
We were looking about 15,000, which is good because we don't do any, that's why we haven't done any outside landscaping. Typically, we install a whole station, and we haven't done any of those smaller minor things. So essentially, the intent was to keep $5,000 aside for any of those other things to help the fire station.
unexpected problems.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we had an air conditioner, was $3,000, so 15 of the 20 was to go to the finishing off the building part.
Okay. Well, I thought I'd bring that to light before we discuss this any further, because we obviously want to get the Atlanta station done. The Arcadia station needs to be completed, the roof part. And I can discuss with my board on any additional funds to help finish the projects. Whatever they have.
Let me just say, let me just entertain a possible motion, and I'm not going to say I'm going to entertain this, that we use any and all possible funds available to include the insurance leftover money as well as the maintenance money to accomplish three things. One, the project that we have going on with Atlanta with the addition, the roof, and the continued project for the Station 55, and provided any, hopefully, subsidies from the township to make up that difference. Because it's probably going to be 40 grand or more by the time we get into the budget to get things that we need to get done.
Yeah. We're not talking cheap items here.
No.
We know what the two of the items are gonna cost, definitely. We have a definite dollar. We have an estimate on the other one. So I agree with you there. Do you,
I was on a motion, to go ahead, we voted to go ahead and do
Sorry.
this.
Now, go ahead, Amy.
I was just gonna say, you were talking about the insurance money, you know, and paying for the repairs there. There's also $2,600 from the air pack money that we wrote a check for to
Okay.
do work on the Atlanta station.
So, you know, I don't know where she put in there, I'd like to see where it went and how it was entered on both of those there, because it should have been, there's some kind of documentation where it was entered back into the budget, and that wasn't our understanding is what she was doing with those funds. But I'd like to see where that was put in and where that was put in at, but I'd make a motion that we got the $20,000 in there, minus the 800, whatever, 19,000 and change. We go ahead and do this Atlanta project out of it, you know, it's $4,500. And then with that, we'll consider that whatever, the insurance money or whatever, if that's where she said she put it. So that way it's still being spent in Atlanta station, and take it out of there. And after the township board has their meeting and determines what they'll pay on towards that roof project, we come back at our next meeting and discuss the rest of the money that's remaining in that line item there, because for one, I really don't want to deplete it completely, plus there's gonna, you know, the priority is gonna be the roof, and then not finishing the inside project, part of the Station 55, you need to do the outside and do that drainage and repair the daylight area that's washed away. So that would be important. I didn't know that until just now, apparently, apparently you got soil washing away from the holes in the floor base and so on there, so that's gonna need to be addressed as a priority. So the roof and that will be the two priorities, I think, and then if
I wanted to let you know on the roof, I'm still waiting on a written estimate because they are doing a big project out of state. That's why I haven't been able to get it yet, but
I really need that next week. Next week, because I've got that board meeting next Wednesday.
next Wednesday.
I want to present it to them to get this dog and put it on the road.
All right, I'll get a hold of him again.
So you're in the process of your motion.
my motion was to do the Atlanta project that Steve had given us a quote for around 4,500 and something out of our repair and maintenance there. And then after the township decides what portion of the roof they're going to pay, at our next meeting, we bring them back to the table, what the fire territory will pay towards the roof project.
But
Station 55.
The real intent is to move forward with the motion to get it approved, so we go ahead and tell Steve, tell the chief, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to hold that up.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion. So Johnny first, and I second it.
Okay, first and second, I approve that. Let's move forward, chief, go ahead and make the necessary contact and see if it will take to finish up the rest of your stations.
Yeah.
Okay,
Also, the trustee requested that quote you gave her, or gave us on the 56. She needs a PO with that quote with it, so she can.
Well, I couldn't fill out a PO
Right.
because I needed the line item. And as we discussed, it should be 3660 is the buildings and grounds. There's 19.75 there.
One thing I did want to mention to you guys too, that if towards the end of the year, if we do need more funds, if we have any additional funds in any of these other line items, we can move them around to fill in,
right.
because the state understands that you run short. As long as it's within this 300 section is what I'm looking at, as long as it's within the 300 section.
Anywhere in your budget,
Yeah.
anywhere in your budget.
Well,
You don't-
we were told we can't move anything out of the 100 section.
Or, and they changed that in 2009.
Okay, but we can move
Honest.
that around, because I'm looking at this like vehicle maintenance. They got $21,000 in vehicle maintenance. If we only use 18 of it, we can transfer that into buildings and grounds.
And isn't that on there where it says building and grounds too? Building,
Yeah.
so it already is under there, and then fleet, so it's kind of, it's kind of where you could use it either or maybe. out of that same
Yeah,
line
see,
item.
it is, it really is. So, like I said, I'm not trying to cut, Chief needs to do what he needs to do to keep
Right.
everything going.
Right.
But towards in the last quarter of the year, if we see that he's done with all his vehicle maintenance, but we need more in a certain line item, we go ahead and
Spend
ability.
it out of that.
Yeah, and all we need to do is direction of where we're going to change the line item.
Okay, the ordinance and resolutions, we already talked about that. Have to wait on that. Invoices and claims, are you taking care of that? Chief?
Do we have any of those?
Do we have any?
Present any claims to us or anything for approval?
I met with her today, I didn't ask her for any claims.
I haven't got anything. We haven't had any major expenditures since the last meeting, though, have we?
We have not.
But have we had any?
FDIC was approved by Maurice because of the time.
Time crunch, they had to be paid.
And then Jason presented a little $1,500 bill from Donnelly Safety that required still $1,500 for the pump test, front end alignment, NPM, on tank 56.
But other than outside of what we agreed on last meeting, the claims and invoices, did she give you any of those? There's one question I want to see, and it's Jeff Walton's, that was
I
a
don't
request
have
where to
any
pay
of
it.
those.
And he had a itemized statement for like $2,100, and then he had told him out due about $2,900, it was $840 difference, and there was no invoice explanation or nothing of the difference of $840, and that was supposed to be brought to the last meeting, and I never seen it, and I'd like to know. That's what I want to see is, that's what I want to see him approve is the invoices before we, go to pay.
How do we, now, pardon me, I'm fairly new to the board, but I'd like to set up a standard on how, if there's an invoice that we need to approve that doesn't go through chief, how are we supposed to get that invoice? Do you want the trustee to give it to me
Yeah.
and bring it to the board? I'm sorry, I'm
But you
trying
have
to.
the financial stuff on the trustee, right?
Yeah, I get this from her, and I can
That's
see
fine.
where most of the expenditures we have they're small, less than $100, little stuff.
But those $100 all add up, and that's where we need
Right.
to be paying attention to the budget. And if you would, I'd like to have a copy of that for each one of the members.
Okay.
Printed out, that's a monthly report, so we can all have that. I like to keep that,
All right.
so I can kind of follow it.
All right, I'd like to make a memo, Audra, from now on, we'd like a copy of the end of month balance, the blue book, basically the blue folder, a copy for every member of the board. Thank you. Is that right?
Okay,
Okay, so, and that
the,
report just shows the month. It doesn't show the year.
Right. I've got year-to-date in here. Well, it has year-to-date, but it doesn't, it has just expenditure.
What we had, what we spent, and the percentage we spent.
Yeah.
But, so if you want to see how much we spent on truck repairs in the first quarter, that's not going to be on there. It's only going to show what truck repairs were exhausted.
This month, yeah. For example, here it shows the utilities. these were the utility expenditures for this month. Hamilton Heights Schools for fuel for this month. But here it has the total amount estimated, and then how much they've spent this year in a percentage.
So this is what's been budgeted.
That's what's been budgeted. Yeah, that's what's been budgeted for the year. This is a carryover from the previous page, that 5,000. It's under communications equipment. See, like if you look at here, Hamilton Heights School Corporation for fuel. Okay, they budgeted $22,000. So far, we spent $32.95. This month, they spent $785. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so basically you subtract this off there and I'll tell you what's left in that.
Exactly, and then it tells you on the side what percentage.
Yeah.
Well, we're at the end of the, we're a third of the way through the year. So I generally, in my head, when I look at these, as long as this number generally doesn't get over 33%, we're kind of on target. Now, I understand Chief spends more money sometimes in the spring on, you know, ladder testing and the truck repairs and stuff, and he may go a higher percentage on stuff, but then the rest of the year, it kind of drops off what we spend percentage
And
wise.
certain things are paid like quarterly and stuff. You couldn't go by that because
Right.
you ain't spent nothing the first 2 or 3
Well,
months.
certainly
All of a sudden
like
it's
salaries,
you know, chunk comes out.
5%
Yeah.
of the first.
The only thing I've seen on salaries as far as financial that's off a little bit is our EMT, part-time EMT firefighters. We're at a higher percentage than we should be, and the reason is because, no, it's the paramedic, part-time paramedic, I'm sorry, is higher because we don't have a full-time guy and we got a part-time guy that's filling it. So it's all in that same 100 line item, and eventually it'll work out in the wash. But right now, one percentage is higher than the other because we haven't filled that full-time position.
That's something you discuss on your report, or can discuss on your,
Yes.
okay. So that's financial report, and we have any other questions on financial? We talked about the eBay account, have you had an approval from the township to start an
Yeah.
eBay account?
Well, we're gonna discuss that at our next meeting because we wanna sell the Explorer.
Right.
And, I needed, Chris she looked at our minutes and she requested that we actually vote to sell the, Crown Vic and have it in the minutes. There was some confusion on the wording in the minutes. You guys still wanna sell the Crown Vic?
Well, the last meeting had, I reported that none of the departments were.
Right. So,
Yeah, our first meeting that we had in April, we voted to sell that and it was brought up that it had to be offered to the other entities within the township,
Right.
the county or whatever, and that had been done, and then it was be put on, up for sale.
Our intention was to
Yeah,
make
our first meeting, that was voted on to go.
okay, well, we all agreed that we wanna sell the Crown Vic on eBay, and we're asking the township board to put it on their account and sell it for the territory, and then take the funds from that and put them back in the territory fund.
That's correct.
Are we all in agreement with that?
Yeah, because we feel we're getting more than $2,000.
Yeah.
And that, we voted on that in that first meeting.
One request that she has, and is gonna need to be done before we sell it, is all the graphics are gonna have to be removed from both the vehicles. Is there any way we can do that? Does any of the guys know how to do that?
I would assume it would take a heat gun, but we can either do it ourselves or we subcontract it, which will come out of the cost of the vehicle in the long run. I make no guarantees. We put them out, we don't pull them off.
Yeah. She was concerned about selling them with our graphics on it. Somebody buy the vehicle that says fire department and, you know, police
Usually
department.
usually you remove the name of the department.
And you think, you got anybody that could attempt to remove them, and if not, then
I
I gotta
got to
find
see,
some.
and I think it's bigger than a hair dryer.
I've used one of the small butane torches and took the decals off our town trucks before, and if you're careful, and just, you know,
It's pretty quick.
heat it up.
You gotta burn them off, or you gonna?
I have a few friends that are in the decal business. I'll ask them if I were to do this on my personal.
But we're trying to sell it, we want to damage the equipment.
Well, that's my concern. Firefighters would want to church.
All right, if we get that from the township, that'd be great. Administrative services line item.
Okay, I asked to put that on, we just need some clarification. We got a invoice, or some hours that we're gonna pay Otter to do the minutes. Chris wanted to know what line item we put that out of. I don't know if you mentioned something about.
I instructed Chris that she could, right now, until we figure out when, and is when I found out that the sheet said, oh, we could have taken us some extra money, or pay. we had some extra,
Oh, okay.
some extra money in there available to pay Audrey out of the part-time pool, is that, I understand it?
And what I stated that to Maurice, okay? All of our part-time money, majority of the portion of it is, as Jeff said, is paying for our open full-time position that we expect to have filled by June 1st. But most of when we budget for our part-timers, that is to put a firefighter in AT for East Station 56 in Atlanta. When one or both of those positions are not filled, because nobody can work them, that money goes unused. So we've had a number of shifts that they're having nobody been up there. So if Audrey, in my mind, Audrey was functioning in a part-time capacity, the question was, where do I take that? Well, I would suggest take that from the part-time line item because it's money that we're not using.
And because of the time frame and
Whether you take it from the 8,000 as the president had indicated and given direction or not, it's still in the 8,000s. My mind was the trustee notified us.
the term administrative services came from me when I addressed that issue with Chris. It was an urgency to get it done because payroll was due that day. Nobody had responded to her, and I said, why don't you just take out the $8,000 line item?
I
For
responded.
small administrative.
I responded to that email, that you sent it out to everyone, and we voted on it in the very first meeting of April. That's in the minutes again, where we voted to pay Audrey. Audrey was gonna do the minutes for the safety board and the territory board and do the agendas, and I made a motion, it's right in the minutes, that we pay her out $8,000, and you all agreed on it. So. she went home
That's
and
fine,
did
I
this.
just want clarification on
And
that.
that, I mean, we voted on it, and that was what, and then we voted to have Audrey do the minutes and everything, and then at the second meeting, you come back and you wanted to do it since you're secretary, and then you said that the township would pick up the,
Well,
and
yeah,
then have Audrey doing it during her work hours.
she can do them during her normal work hours, and it's not an undue burden to the township.
And it's
then
not overtime.
It's not overtime.
And, I talked to Audrey after that first meeting, when we voted on that, agreed on it, she had no problem doing them at home, and, it probably would be $1,000 a year if we paid her out of that 8,000, because, she does it within a few, she said she gets paid about $15 an hour, that's $45 for basically what she's turned in. And we have, 12 to 24 hour meetings, we're having 1 to 2 meetings a month, so, we're not talking about much money there.
Some of these questions are repeated. We're revisiting things we already approved prior. I feel like I'm trying to catch my tail sometimes. Because we brought it up in other meetings and approved it.
I think part of it was when we created the minutes, we need to be more clear on, reiterate when we vote on stuff, this is what we want done, because it's kind of like a narrative where the way the minutes are going. So when we do something, we just need to be more forthcoming, exactly how we want things done. So that way it's a little easier to read in the minutes, and I'll make sure I take care of that. That's partially me, because I didn't.
I thought that was perfect, I thought that perfectly clear in that first meeting, and, we all voted on it, and I made a motion, and there was no problem.
Okay, so we're all in agreements that Audrey is to be paid out of that administrative line item. From now on, any work that she does outside of her normal,
Like you said, keep it standardized.
Yeah.
Let's use it.
and we'll definitely keep track of all the hours and expenses, and it'll be deducted from that line item. We're all in agreements with that, as we voted earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, so Audrey will be paid out of the administrative line item where there's $8,000.
Now,
She's gonna be doing the agenda, we want her to do the agenda too, because we voted on that last month, and then, at the last meeting, and then you sent an email to Maurice asking if he had that prepared, and we voted to have Audrey do it, so I thought we were gonna correct it to where there was one person designated to do minutes and the agenda to simplify things.
Well, the one Jeff brought up, too, she's only there twice a week.
Yeah, but
3 times a week.
And, she said, what we're talking about, any hours even after her 2 days there, and she said she don't mind doing them at home. When I spoke to her, she said, she's got plenty of time, and she didn't mind even doing the minutes or any of that at home. And,
one thing the board may consider is too, that conflict is, you can pay her as a subcontractor at 1099.
No, you can't. Remember, we already had that fiasco with you and Jason.
But she wouldn't be getting paid
No, we're all-
the township, as a township employee, the township rate, she would be a flat rate. That would be be something that they could entertain. So whether she does it at the office or not, she would then have to do it separate from the office. It's separate for her if she was babysitting.
And really, Steve's ready to simplify the whole thing. I think the 8,000 is in there. That's not gonna make or break the territory, because that's what I've been told by the reserves that we might need it.
Well,
If
we
fees are
have a
sold-
$7,000 shortage that we were given for workers' comp.
Right.
That
The
will have to
fee-
come out of the 100.
Yeah, the fees that are coming out of there are small anyway, and I don't think it's gonna break the banks, and that's why we're not gonna get into a conflict of, well, how do you entertain and how do you distinguish a subcontractor versus an employee?
I think
I'll
what we
keep it
need
simple
is,
that way.
I was sorry, I was under the understanding that you were gonna be the contact person to Audra to have the minutes, or the agenda done, and I was gonna do the minutes.
It's my age, it's my age, Jack, it's probably.
What we could do, if the board would like to, is send everything to Maurice, and he contacts Audra, and Audra completes it and sends it out to Maurice, or.
I don't have a problem if you want to simplify that. We just wrote on the last meeting that you said you would. That's what confused us.
Okay.
So, but if it's simpler to send it to me, I'll send it to Audra. That's not
I mean,
This, how we got the minutes here, or the agenda here, is it's reasonable. I mean, it's, Audra's not gonna do much more than what you did right here.
right.
Really, she's not. I mean, she may move some stuff around a little bit, but, it's pretty much fits the bill the way this is done tonight.
but, you know, the only benefit of having her do it and send them directly to her is Maurice wouldn't have to keep check on his email if he missed an email, you know, and there's things like it may come up, you know, I came up with this stuff kind of at the last minute that I had to add to this, but, you know, I come up with things throughout, you know, between now and the next meeting that I can think about, I can just send it to her and she can have it there.
Until the next person will issue, I buried my mother already, so I don't think I'm gonna have to rebury her, so. But I haven't planned all that out. I go to New York, drive 1,700 miles, and, you know, it was pretty subsiding, so I asked John to do that.
And I-
If it's simpler for me to get the information, I send it to Audra, I can do that. Not a big thing.
All right, so you wanna do the contact?
Just send it to me. I'll be fine.
So the agenda will go to Maurice, anything for the agenda will go to Maurice and he'll forward it on.
Right. Okay, EMS fund change update, chief.
Yeah, I need a little more time on that to
Okay.
confirm on that. If you don't mind, so that,
No problem at all.
if you want to request that we table the EMS fund. Agenda.
The reason why,
Next meeting.
Jeff, I think that's an important issue,
As do I.
because we had spoken with, I had spoken with one of my earlier contacts, spoke with Jeff Larson about the law. He says the law says this, it has to be with the township because it's a territory and they're providing it. The other part of the law says it can be with the fire territory, because other people are contentious with that. So I instructed the chief to get with another department that says successful territory to see how they go about it, there's a couple of them. So that we can come back, and how, it's like DGLF, like interpreting their law. Right. You know, or a judge interpreting what he thinks is right or wrong. I just wanna make sure it's clear and decisive that no absolute, and no possible abilities can the territory receive these funds. It would be simpler and much easier and less burden on the township if the funds came directly to the fire territory, so we can use that money to pay the salaries, the overhead, and the operating costs of the department.
I
This way
agree.
I'm not on my knees, hands and knees begging for money.
I wish we could do that too.
I got a feeling there's an addition to that state statute that Boston's quoting, because there's other territories that have EMS funds in there. The EMS funds were also part of our budget that was sent to DLGF and it was approved through DLGF as a territory fund. If you look at the 1782, that was approved by DLGF for the township. And it has a township budget, it has the poor relief fund, and then it goes into the emergency loan funds, and then you get on down, and it shows that EMS fund is included into part of the final budget by DLGF. So DLGF recognizes this territory money. So I can't figure out why, if the DLGF being a state agency doesn't, they recognize it and they deal with the budgets and everything, approve the budgets, that the state, there's not state statute that's allowing it, or would or would not allow
Yeah, we definitely need clarification because on this line item, the Fund 11 is Fire Territory Fund, and Fund 12 is Emergency Medical Service. Then you go Fund 13 is Equipment Replacement.
Do we have one?
Huh?
Do we have any?
No, it's all zeros, Maurice, matter of fact. There's a rescue fund in here that's a township fund that when we used to charge for rescue services as far as auto extrications, we used to be able to bill for that, and I don't know if that still takes place or not. And then there's a Cuban Fire Fund, the township, fire equipment debt, which is to pay off fire equipment. It's several things in here, funds in here. So we just need clarification. If there's another territory that does do that, maybe they can point us in the right direction. It'd save us a lot of time.
Yeah, it'll make it a lot easier to operate.
Yeah. So, okay.
All right, the next one, ambulance and engine payoff specs and that kind of stuff.
Okay, I talked to trustee about this. The ambulance and the fire engine that the township purchased and have a tax rate for get paid off July 1st of next year.
Both of them.
Both of them do. The loan is up July 1st of next year. So if, and she called Judy's office, Judy wasn't there, so she talked to one of Judy's other people that work in Judy's office, Judy Robinson from the DLGF, and they stated that they believe that if we wanted to purchase apparatus in 2016, we need to have those numbers together to pick up that tax rate starting July 1st.
Next year's is
Something in
next
line
year.
before
Okay.
that will pay off.
Right. So we probably wouldn't purchase them until next year, but we would start paying for them and the tax rate would continue on. I thought they finished in January. I was wrong. They finished July 1st. I
Oh, there's
forgot
a
we
one
did
in there
that last
somewhere.
year. Yeah. It was 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. Next thing is the emergency loan, or some people call it the E-loan, that we all got when we created the territory. 2016 is the last year to pay on that, and I thought it was paid off January 1st. It's not. It goes the entire length of the year, so it'll be January of 17 and it'll be done. So we'll see, the taxpayers will see their tax rates drop slightly in January of 17. It won't be a E-loan special rate.
Okay.
So that goes, you say that goes through all
17.
2017. 2017.
Yeah, well, at the end of 16 it'll be done. So just to give you that, I think I should have probably put that more into the financial, but that gives chiefs a little idea on what they need to do as far as if they want to spec different apparatus. Most likely, if we do that, we probably won't get them until mid-next year, but they need to have some rough ideas on what the rates are going to be. DLGF just wants a heads up on that.
Jeff, can you give me a timeline now, or would it be better at the township meeting to give me a timeline as to, okay, this is, that's really what, I need two things, timeline and dollar amount.
Dollar amount, I'm not real sure. It's $54,000 is what we're paying a year, and that includes the interest times 5 years, which would bring it up to 260,000, 265,000, somewhere around that, 270,000. I would think that would be the price range if we want to keep that rate fairly close. Since then, the interest rates may have dropped slightly. I don't know what the current rates are, but I would say without our taxpayers seeing a jump in their taxes, if we keep it between 270 and 300,000, that would be just a suggestion. It's up to this board if they want to go beyond that. I'm sure when they start getting quotes, they're going to find out what stuff really costs. Now I know this in last year, I believe, and Robin can probably confirm this. Judy has her workshops in August, first week of August usually, doesn't she? Mm-hmm. And that's when she wants a rough idea on cost. You don't have to give her an exact dollar amount as far as the piece of apparatus. If you think it's going to cost $150,000, tell her approximately $150,000. And she doesn't care about what it is and all that. She just say, we want to buy a piece of fire apparatus and it's approximately that money. Yeah, and then once you get, because you gotta get the final quote, then you go to the bank or whatever, and they're gonna tell you what it's gonna cost for the the interest rate over the length of the loan. Then they split it all up and they get the exact dollar amount. And then sometimes they're off maybe $1,200 a year or something like that. You know, it just depends on.
So when it comes to the time